Thanks for joining our video today, where we'll be discussing the effect of COVID-19 on the hospitality and entertainment industry. We'll be joined today by Atif Rafiq, who's the president for commercial and growth for MGM Resorts. But before we get started today, can you tell us a bit more about MGM?
It's great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity to share. MGM Resorts is a Fortune 500 company that is the largest player in Las Vegas. Both domestically and globally, we operate a set of about 25 resorts, what have traditionally been called integrated casino resorts, but are really a lot more than that. They're a place for conventions, for a lot of leisure guests. They're a place really for experiences, everything from entertainment to fine dining and restaurants.
Obviously, your business has been very affected by COVID-19. Could you just tell us a little bit about the journey you've been on for the last couple of months? Because I'm sure it's been very interesting and very trying.
Travel and leisure has been on the front line of the COVID crisis from a business perspective. For all the right reasons, we had to close the properties and the resorts starting essentially in early to mid-March. So we've been closed for about 90 days, but I'm happy to share just recently on June 4th, we reopened a number of resorts in Las Vegas, and that's gone well. So the impact of closures is significant. Coming out of the closures, we've focused on safety and health. We have a notion of Vegas safely. And so we made a ton of changes in that about 90-day period to really create an environment that people could trust and have confidence in wanting to come back to.
You've been a digital guy from way back and have been using technology to change the customer experience. Can you perhaps talk about, how some of the technology has been deployed to help the customer experience? And then just in general, what else you've done at MGM to really kind of not only bring people back safely, but bring them back to a great experience?
And there are some fundamentals of what people expect in an experience in the era that we're in. And those are everything from very different sort of setup in the resorts to promote social distancing. So, for example, every other slot table was taken out of commission. There's more spacing between the tables at restaurants. We procured large numbers of masks and sanitizers for both employees and guests. We booted up new operational protocols in terms of how employees interact with guests with safety in mind. And then, of course, contactless experiences, which is where digital sort of is an important contributor. And so for us, that's meant everything from how you get your food to your arrival experience. In terms of how you get your food, for example, as opposed to a menu, you would scan a QR code and have a menu that's on your phone. By way of example, rather than standing in a line for a restaurant or a lounge, you would actually also scan a QR code and you'd get in a digital queue and you'd get a notification when your table's ready. Those are some of the examples of what our teams really moved fast on to prepare in terms of customer experience and welcoming people back.
I'm assuming, Atif, you had a lot of this kind of in the hopper, so to speak, and maybe not. Have you had to accelerate your kind of move to digital and introduction to some of these technologies as a result of the COVID crisis?
Broadly speaking, I think all companies have looked at digitization of their customer experience, in our case, our guest experience. So we have an active roadmap of that, and that involves everything from helping you plan your visit, itineraries and curation and recommendation, to what you do when you're here and how you actually arrive in a way that's convenient for you. The check-in piece in particular had been on our roadmap, and it was accelerated by about 9 months. So wow. I'm really happy with the operational technology and digital teams in terms of really finding a way to make that possible. And so the way that works for our guests is you can skip the line. You can do it all through the app. And for a casino-based resort, that's not as simple as it sounds. I know that's been out there with the Marriotts and the Hiltons for a while. But when you're a casino-based resort, you've had a requirement of verifying a physical ID. So that's always required interacting with another person to literally check your driver's license, for example. But our teams came up with a technology where you could scan your driver's license and then it would actually work with the telecom provider. Let's say you work with Verizon or AT&T, and T, and they've already checked your driver's license when you signed up for your phone plan. And so just send a text message to the phone number that's associated with that license, and that's how we essentially streamlined it, made it completely self-service. So that was an example of an innovation which got accelerated. And on top of that, for those who want physical keys, we created a way for people to essentially just take print their own keys as well. So it's a check-in experience that's completely self-service, whether you want to verify your ID on your own, add your own payment, use a digital key, which is your phone, or even print physical keys. You, as a consumer, can control the entire experience end to end.
It's difficult to understand or rationalize the investment, like the overall investment in digital, right? Because there's so many competing forces for investment dollars, obviously. So, as you think about this crisis, has the overall leadership of MGM Resorts, have they looked at their kind of technology investments as higher priority because of this? It sounds like they may have, given the acceleration you guys were able to pull off in terms of the check-in, for example.
This is born partly out of necessity, this acceleration, because of the focus on safety. But one of the beauties of my role, which is a higher level sort of P&L role, looking at owning the business overall, is it's pretty clear to make the link between improving customer experience and how business value gets created. So let's think about just that check-in example by way of example. It's not just a digitization thing, it's a different way of doing business. So to give you some example, we have good adoption of it, and over half of the people who are using it do it before they actually arrive at the resort. And so if we think about that, that actually has a massive cascading impact on how we set up our operations. Because if I've already done the check-in, then I might want to zoom to my room, go right to the elevator and up to the room. Or I might need a different kind of help, which is more planning what I'm going to do to have a fun, interesting stay. And so the impact on how you use staffing and how you set up your operations is significant. It's not just, let's say, an app. And another example of the same thing, let's think about now large numbers of people having an app for MGM Resorts while they're here for 3 or 4 days. Well, it's not just a matter of using it to unlock the room. That's a perfect spot for recommendations, for letting them know what's open, what's available, what are the interesting things around them, restaurants, entertainment, other amenities that they can take advantage of, things people are looking for as they decide what to do. So overall, it's a prime opportunity to look at what it means as a new way of actually doing business with customers.
Have you, as a result, accelerated your investment in machine learning or data and analytics as a result? Because you're getting so much rich data, obviously, now that you can create, I'm assuming, different revenue streams or different events for the customers, which is beneficial, as you say, for them and for MGM as well.
The company has been working on that even before my arrival. I arrived here about a year ago, and fortunately, they had hired some bona fide technologists from Starbucks and other places, which are really leading examples of personalization and making use of customer information to actually tailor and personalize things, experiences, campaigns, etc. But we've absolutely got to go faster and deeper on that. And so the opportunity here is to actually know your customers better and maybe focus on a few specific cohorts, I'd like to say. The more you can understand, out of all the offerings you do have, and we have so many, what is most relevant to people, that I think is where we want to go from a business perspective.
Do you think the culture of MGM Resorts has changed as a result of this, allowing the company to make better and faster decisions?
Anthony, this is not my first rodeo, so to speak, in terms
Yeah.
of transformation in the Fortune 500. And the key thing I've learned over the last, 8 or so years is that as opposed to a place like Amazon, where sort of innovation is built in by design from day one, and there's day one thinking, and et cetera, et cetera. With a place like McDonald's or MGM Resorts, it starts to work better once the company tastes the benefit. And so now that the benefit has been tasted, we talked about the check-in. I didn't mention that it went from 0 to 25% adoption in one day at launch. That begins to put the wheels in motion. Then the momentum builds. How can we do more with this? How can we get 25% to a higher number? If people were enjoying that convenience, what other convenience can we bring to the table? So that really gets a company with sort of escape velocity, use a startup term, on its transformation, whether you want to call it business transformation or digital. And I think that is very much so a cultural issue, because then we start to believe and lean into the thing. So I believe that obviously MGM Resorts is not unique in that. I'm hoping that a lot of other companies are at that moment where they're going to lean into it.
Do you think this crisis is going to change the way MGM Resorts does business in the long run, both from maybe an organizational structure or a cultural or an investment perspective? I mean, has this changed your business forever?
I think so. And here's my reasoning. Let's look at MGM Resorts. Historically, we run our business model depends, and we've been benefiting from 95% occupancy. So we've built a robust category-leading business, global business, Fortune 300 business, based on the notion of resorts being pretty busy all the time, and we found a way to fill it up. Well, the question is, what's the world we live in now? And I think many companies are in a position where their core business is still there, but maybe that solves for 50 to 60% of it. The question is, where's the rest? Where's the other 30 to 40% going to come from? And in my mind, it's not just about managing through a recovery where you have wishful thinking that the recovery is sooner and that the other 30-40% comes back in 6 months or 18 months, and then you manage your cost structure, and then you're on the other side of it. I think that's not the right answer. I think that you'll have, if you're a strong company with a strong core customer base, you'll get, you probably have visibility to the 60%, but now you need to really identify some smart growth opportunities to get the next 30. And the interesting thing is that in travel and leisure, for example, everything's been dislocated. So what's up for grabs? And even beyond travel and leisure, with everyone working from home, for example, where's the opportunity in that? I would like to, we're going to go out in front and try and convince people that they can work from Vegas, for example. If you're going to work remote, you might as well kind of combine work and leisure. Is that an opportunity that didn't exist before crisis that can help fill up some of that 30 to 40%? So that's the general thinking. I mean, those numbers are not exact, and no one can predict the future, but it's a way of saying that I think companies need to do a bit of wayfinding and look for the new growth opportunities.
Yeah. Any other advice you might give to chief digital officers out there that are going through the same crisis?
Focus on how we're conducting business and how we're putting customers first. So if we make the conversation about customers and new ways of doing business, that usually overcomes what are often structural barriers in companies where digital is viewed as an enabler and not a driver of things. And so if we make the conversation around customers and new ways of driving the business, then the role of digital will obviously be very essential, and people will feel the power of it because it's very quick. It's to adjust things, to iterate, to learn things, and to use data to actually make a decision. So my advice is really to lean into that as a way to spearhead change and building traction.